Ed Wrenn, and I live in the east end of Pittsburgh. And I'm not so much right next to a large industry, but I'm affected by a large industry, which is um, the industry of landscaping, basically, which is related to the petrochemical industry, which is related to companies like, say, Dow Chemical, which produce pesticides and herbicides, and companies which produce synthetic fertilizers, which are usually fossil fuel based. And it's next to me in the sense that people in my neighborhood are mowing vast expanses of lawn with gasoline powered equipment, and they are using toxic chemicals on strictly ornamental lawns, and they are creating noise pollution, which is not only annoying, but it's a verified public health threat. We're in a pretty upscale old neighborhood of the east end of Pittsburgh. Most of my neighbors hire landscapers to deal with their property. I don't, because it doesn't really require maintenance for the most part, other than some weeding and that sort of thing. I recently retired, although I'm spending lots and lots of time on native plant movement and more sustainable agriculture. As a family physician and hospitalist, I'm very aware of lots of factors that go into people's health, and one of the factors is just exposure to nature, which can provide, again, verifiable health benefits. And I'm aware of toxicology, of course, including, say, lead pollution, which is a garden issue. And for years, I've enjoyed being in natural spaces and gardening, and have been an environmental activist. At one point, I was one of the original people involved in a group called Pittsburghers Against Single-Use Plastic. And as I realized more about the opportunities to change landscaping paradigms, I realized that a lot of environmentalism requires people to sacrifice. It requires going up against major industries and their political allies. And it's also difficult for people to see a tangible difference that they may be making in the world. And transforming landscaping is something that you can do, of course, right on your property. You can talk to your neighbors. You can start walking around the neighborhood and seeing the impact of what you are doing because of other people being inspired to do similar things. So that's why I'm focusing on it. And I think a lot of people see something like native plants as and gardening as a very hobbyist sort of thing, but it has massive impacts across our society. And to me, gasoline lawn and garden powered equipment can cause up to 5% of total air pollution, which is a huge percentage, and it's also a very modifiable percentage. And the reason that it causes so much air pollution is that lawn and garden equipment, mainly lawnmowers and leaf blowers, use highly inefficient two-stroke motors that are much more polluting, perhaps over 30 times more polluting per gallon of gas than an automobile. So I think the main opportunity is to decrease the use of that type of equipment. And it can be a radical transformation, like completely getting rid of one's grass lawn, or it could be easier things like switching over to electric powered equipment or manual equipment. During most of lawn history, people use manual lawnmowers, and those are perfectly great especially for small areas, or just simply mowing lawns less frequently. So if you mow your lawn every 2 weeks or whatever instead of 1 week, then of course you have all of the pollution from it. And Another big opportunity is to reduce the use of toxic chemicals, um, mainly pesticides, but also herbicides, which are broad spectrum, so they kill the good stuff as well as the bad, fungicides, and fertilizers can be toxic, but they also cause eutrophication, which leads to algal blooms and that sort of thing. Also, lawns use potable water, which in some places in very short supply, but even in areas like Pittsburgh, it takes really a lot of money and other resources to produce potable water. And one thing that has struck me as being grotesque, really, is to be in the middle of a torrential rainstorm and see that people's automatic um, watering services are going off right during the middle of a rainstorm. So I'm mostly not trying to fuss at people because people don't like that. And I'm really trying to entice people into a different way of looking at their landscapes. And I hadn't mentioned I'm a co-founder of a chapter of Wild Ones Native Plants Natural Landscapes, which is a national organization with over 100 chapters in 33 states and growing. And a friend and I co-founded a chapter a little over 2 years ago. My main incentive was that I could not find the plants that I wanted at local nurseries. I'm trying to focus on increasing demand for native plants, but I'm also trying to increase the infrastructure for helping people to find the plants, find garden designers and landscapers with expertise in it. And I've also been quite politically active during my life, and there are a lot of political opportunities in this. For example, just spending public money to educate people about native plants, have native plants more commonly along roadsides and in parks, and also to regulate the sale of invasive species. Believe it or not, it's legal and common for nurseries and retailers to sell plants that go out in the environment and compete with native plants and cause all kind of trouble and are no benefit to wildlife. And I also partner with the Pennsylvania Native Plant Society. There are native plant societies in every state. So we're working with the invasive species, I think at committee or council at the state level. Also, there's room for regulation of poisonous chemicals, which I'm currently trying to learn more about the toxic effects of pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides, including being potential carcinogens. So there are really a lot of things that can be done at various levels. And the advantage of what we're doing with Wild Ones is that we are educating people about native plants, but education is, I think, as we know in medicine, education doesn't necessarily mean change in habits. So we're trying to help people be able to visualize what they might do with using native plants to replace non-natives. And it may be as simple as just devoting a very small part of the garden to native plants. And when that happens, people will see that insects such as bees and butterflies and birds will be finding their little place, and that hopefully will inspire them to do more. And the most beneficial type of native plant is a tree, because it can be habitat for hundreds of species of moss, like over 500 in an oak tree versus hardly any in non-native trees. And trees sequester enormous amounts of carbon, both in the visible part and in the roots, but they also sequester carbon in the soils. And if we just let the leaves stay where they are or rake them into piles on property, then we prevent them from being often put in plastic bags and sent to landfills. And whenever you send organic material to a landfill, it will generate methane, which is a potent greenhouse gas. So I feel very strongly about this because it's just an opportunity that is not widely recognized by many people, including people that are working very diligently to try to regulate the petrochemical industry. But this is, as we often use the term in medicine, this is low-hanging fruit. And to be silly, sometimes the low-hanging fruit includes pawpaws and service berries and other actual fruit. In general, again, I don't want to shame people, but I see that there's very little justification for using ornamental spaces in ways that are harmful to the environment and people rather than beneficial. I mean, it's not producing food, it's just for looks. And honestly, people's perceptions are changing to the point that native plant gardens are being seen as desirable and even prestigious. However, agriculture is another matter. I mean, we need to feed people, of course, and I don't want to be naive about it, but there's here's another pun, a growing trend to support more sustainable agriculture. I'm partnered with a group called PASA Sustainable Agriculture, which is supports farmers and others in growing food, and that's, for one thing, more healthy to people, but also better for the environment. And I'm proud to be moderating a session at the annual conference in February, which is going to be the uses of native plants in agriculture. But it's obviously a huge field, and there's the term regenerative agriculture, and that includes using more natural fertilizers, and it includes less plowing, and there's also using nature to control harmful insects. And basically in medicine, as well as everything, often our best model is nature, and nature is the best recycler. There's a natural circular economy in nature, and we want to try to emulate that. And we want people that garden, that farm more sustainably, to have their products valued in the marketplace. We want them to be able to make money while providing us healthy food and providing ecosystem benefits, which are earth benefits, really, because of course air pollution goes global, and water pollution is a tremendously important issue, and ground pollution as well. Native plants have extremely deep roots. They're very important in erosion control and flood control. They can help to avoid much more expensive technological solutions, but it's one of those things that it's hard to point your finger at two or three things to fight against. It's really more trying to create aggregate change. And there are vested interests in perpetuating the current system, and we need to be aware of that. But we can do a workaround by just educating people and changing demand towards things that are better for everyone. To join Wild Ones and find more about it, one would need to go to wildones.org, and there you can get some free information and learn how to join, which is a minimum of $25 a year. 40 is the more standard rate. And we really need leadership, and certainly including physician leadership in this. So I'd invite you to join Wild Ones. If there's 5 chapters across Pennsylvania, if there's no chapter in your area, I'd be happy to talk with you about starting one. I'm also involved in national leadership as a chapter advisory committee member. So this is great. It's super fun. I'll give a shout out to Don Brockman and his wife Christine, who are near here and have transformed their suburban property with native plants, and they're having a wonderful time with it. It just stimulates the curiosity and wonder so much to see hundreds of species of insects, including the iconic monarch butterfly, and My favorite thing is to see a hummingbird visit my property because they are just absolutely incredible creatures. I don't understand how they do what they do. So it's fun and better for everybody. What's not to like about that?